Thanks for joining me today at Learnwake. My name is Brandon Judd, and I am responding to a video analysis request that's been uploaded by Ken Clark here. And this video is on a Toeside back roll attempt, wake to wake. And in his comments, he says, "I've tried the drills and end up with frontside rotation, even with one-handed short attempts. Boat is G23 full ballast. 3 adults, 2 kids. Rope was 60 feet and 21 miles an hour. He usually rides a little longer, a little faster." He also says, "I'm an old guy that really prefers to go wake to wake when possible to keep the impact low, but realize learning inverts requires impact. I just don't want to do any more drills that go into the flats than necessary. Thanks for the help. You guys are awesome." Thanks, Ken, for this. This really helps us understand kind of where your head's at, and some of your stats are also really helpful here. Now, I'm going to get into this first before I go into your attempt, where he says that you end up with frontside rotation even with the one-handed short attempts. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. So for those of you who are not super familiar with what he's talking about, there is a drill here on Learnwake called the one-handed Toeside back roll. So when I have taught people this and they still have a hard time going frontside, which is common, the issue is that this trick and this drill even it puts your hand in a position where if you get a nice tug on the rope, what's going to happen is naturally a lot of people feel like they need to pull back a little bit. Like if I was to hand you a rope and you were to hold it in your hand just casually and I was to tug on it, without even thinking, you would start tugging back. Like, it's just this kind of human nature thing that we do. So when Kyle's edging through this one-handed Toeside back roll, he is able to keep his arm extended and relaxed without pulling it across his body. That's because he trusts the line to be tight when it needs to be tight and then go loose when it needs to go loose. And that's just something that people who are first learning this have a hard time with sometimes. Right here, it's really tempting to have your bicep and your pec engage in this fight with the handle here and pull. It's really easy to bend your arm and to pull this across your face, especially when it's up high like that. But that is just going to untwist you and spin you front side. So instead, you almost have to counter that and push the handle down a little bit and keep it out away from you and low. So again, the reason I say this for you, Ken, is that I wouldn't just completely give up on this drill. There's still a lot of things that you can learn from this, keeping that in mind. And you can practice that one way, because you mentioned in your comments that you just would like to have as little impact as possible, and that may be a way to get over that habit of pulling your arm across your body without as much impact. All right, so now going to the wake-to-wake version, when you edge in, and we'll take a look at this. Let's look at yours first. So when you edge in here, you'll notice as you're taking off the wake, your arm and the handle goes kind of high, and then it stays really high. Even here, it's kind of hard to tell. It stays pretty high, and then it gets low again right here when you pull across your body. So that may not feel very intentional, but it is happening, and that's why you get completely untwisted right here. And I'm going to play it one time through. Sometimes I don't actually let people see the entire trick, so we'll just kind of let you take a look at, there we go, at that. All right, so if we go to Kyle's Toeside back roll here, and we're just going to scroll through it a little. So you'll notice that in Kyle's back roll here, that as he flips through the wake, I want you to watch the handle very specifically. He's going to take the handle and he's going to push it down and toward his lead hip. And he does that just without thinking about it. He'll do it naturally to cancel out that line tension. Because what happens is when you're squared up to the wake like this, you'll see Kyle's arm, his back arm is straight and his front arm is bent. And when if I was to pull him really hard and just yank on the handle right now, it would twist his shoulders to face me because this arm is already straight and this one would just unbend. So just the nature of this trick wants to untwist you. So it's very, very normal that you get pulled to revert on this trick, that you get that front side rotation. So if we look at that as he's flipping, you'll watch what he does very distinctly with the handle. He pushes it down by his lead hip. Like, watch how it looks like so intentional. Like, every time he does this flip, all he's thinking about is jamming that handle down by his front hip. But even when I do these, it just sort of happens, and I don't really notice that's what I'm doing. It's just the only way that I can keep myself from untwisting and turning front side. So, and then as soon as he gets completely upside down, he drops his back hand and prepares for landing by keeping the handle nice and low, kind of by his thigh there. And that allows him to hold that twist all the way through. So I'm going to watch this a little more fluid so it's not so jumpy. And you can watch that handle push. So he edges through the wake, pushes the handle down, and then prepares for landing one-handed. So it, like you can see there, it's a very distinct, front hip lowering of the handle after he takes off of the wake. So let's take another look at a different example. So Kyle's not the only one that does this. This is Ben Greenwood here, and Ben loads his up really, really well, and that turns him a little bit front side. But you'll see that he does the same thing with the handle. It just looks slightly different than Kyle's. But you'll see it's a really good example of canceling out that front side rotation. So you'll see here, it almost kind of looked like yours did in the middle of it, but your handle was over here instead of Ben really canceling that front side rotation out. And then he takes his backhand off the handle, and then look how close his front hand is to his knee almost. I mean, he's really keeping the handle low and front side on that to allow him to stay landing on his toes and not get untwisted there. So it's very much a toe side takeoff, and then both hands go down while the line tension is kind of tight in the middle of the trick. And then as soon as you're in the middle of your jump and you're completely upside down, you'll drop your back hand and you'll descend with one hand on the handle. And that'll help keep it squared up and toe side nice and easy. So I'm going to go back to Kyle's here, and there's one other little thing if I'm being picky on yours. I'm going to try and go to where Kyle is still in the wake a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So his tail of his board's still in the wake, and I want you to look at the angle of his body. You flip a little quick. So the tail of the board's still in the wake, and look at your angle here. And then we'll toggle back and forth to Kyle's angle. So you'll see Kyle is more upright, and you are already more flipped. So you could, if you were upright like Kyle, I'm going to draw a little line here, it would look more like this. And that is going to help you go up before you start flipping so much. And if you start flipping really early while the line tension is really high, it's going to make your tendency to have the backhand get pulled across and pull you front side. That tendency is going to increase. But again, let's look at just exactly what happens here with the handle. You'll see how it's low and almost to your back hip, whereas in Ben's example, his handle was pinned to his front hip. So now it's kind of toward your back hip, which is what turns you to 180 here. So hopefully that makes sense. And I'm going to show you a super extreme example of your takeoff. Again, the only thing similar to this trick from your normal ungrabbed toe side back roll wake to wake is the flipping rotation. You actually come in very different for a double up version, because this is an indie toe side back roll off of the double up. This is JD Webb. But so he's going to exaggerate how slow he flips because he has so much time in the air and he's grabbing the board. So by the time he gets the grab, he's going to start flipping really quick. So it's a very, very exaggerated version of that. So I'm not saying you need to do your trick like this, but I wanted to show you how slow you can actually rotate and still pull it off. We'll look at JD here as he hits the double up. So you'll see how upright he is at this point. I mean, he has not flipped at all. Looks like just a big toe side jump. Still hasn't flipped, still hasn't flipped, still hasn't flipped. Gets the grab, flips, finishes his flip just about, and then just falls straight out of it. So it's really fun to watch because he goes so high on this. But you'll see, look at the handle. As soon as he goes for the grab, the handle goes kind of backside toward his back hip, and then he flips around, and then the handle goes back down, like it's almost touching his calf right there to keep him lined up right. So it's just fun to see an extreme example of that, and it's also really fun to watch because of how high JD goes on this. But yeah, so those are the two things specifically in yours, is the handle placement and the timing of your flip. It looks like you flip a little early right off the wake, so you can be more patient and be more upright for a little longer. And then the handle goes really high, and you kind of pull it in, and that brings you across to your switch stance. Now, last little thing, I want to show you what you actually do on your toe side jump, just so that you can prove to yourself that it is doable. So this is your normal toe side jump. I want you to watch what you do with the handle. You take off in the air, and then you push that handle. It's kind of hard to tell, but you push that handle down by your front hip. Look how across the body and down the handle is here. And then you let go on the way down and land one-handed. That's a perfect toe side wake jump. I'm going to play it again, but I want you to think about, if you have to do this with just as much load as a normal toe side wake jump does, imagine how much more load there is when you're trying to load into an invert. And in order to not turn front side, you'd have to have that handle adjustment almost more exaggerated. Does that make sense? So watch the handle go down and across your body and then land one-handed. It's the same thing on the toe side back roll, only it's more important because there's more line tension. So up, handle down and across, and it keeps you there. So I know you know how to do it. It's just that when we start flipping, we kind of forget all our other good habits here, and that invert is just so foreign and new to us that we kind of forget some of those good things we have built in. So you can do it, and that's going to really help you. I would start with the one-handed toe side back roll and think about pushing that handle down toward your front hip, and being really patient through the wake, and then I'd take it wake to wake like you've been doing. Your stats look great. It looks like you'll go wake to wake nice. And then you'll take both hands and you'll pin it to your front hip on the way up. And then on the way down, you'll drop a hand and land over your toes. Thanks again for submitting the video. Good luck, and we'll see you around the site.